The United States Adult Soccer Association is a national organization and sanctioning body for amateur soccer in the United States. It consists of 54 state organizations as well as regional and national leagues. The USL's Premier Development League and the National Premier Soccer League are USASA affiliated but are designed to promote a higher level of competition than the state organizations. USASA also affiliates the Women's Premier Soccer League, one of the top women's leagues in the nation. USASA has over 250,000 adult members within its leagues and teams. Organization, state and local associations operate leagues under the umbrella of the USASA. The national organization is split into 4 regions. Affiliated Amateur Adult Leagues. For a list of USASA-affiliated amateur adult leagues, see List of USASA-affiliated leagues. Competitions. Nationally, the USASA runs the following competitions for its affiliated teams: Men's National Cup Finals, other National Cup competitions, Co-ed Cup, Veterans Cup. Amateur Championships. In 2013, USASA held a competition to pit the champions of the different men's amateur competitions against each other for the title of USA National Amateur Champions. The event was repeated in 2014, this time adding a bracket for women's amateur competition champions. 2013, teams competing: Battery Park Gunners are USASA Amateur Champions, Carolina Dynamo are Poundal runners-up, Croatian Eagles are USASA Open Champions, FC Lehigh Valley United Sonic are NPSL Champions. Carolina Dynamo won the championships in a 3-2 penalty kicks decision after drawing FC LVU Sonic 1-1 in regulation. The third-place match went to Croatian Eagles, beating the Gunners 3-1. 2014, teams competing: RWB Adria defeated Sonoma County Sol 1-0 to win the Men's Amateur National Championship. Washington Spirit Reserves won the Women's Championship, 2-0 over Houston Aces. USASA in the US Open Cup. 2012 Aegean Hawks are Arlington, Virginia, ASC New Stars are Houston, Texas, Brooklyn Italians are Brooklyn, New York, Cal FC are Thousand Oaks, California, Croatian Eagles are Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Fullerton Rangers are Fullerton, California, Georgia Revolution are Conyers, Georgia, Greek American AA are Astoria, New York, Jacksonville United are Jacksonville, Florida, Jersey Shore Boca are Toms River, New Jersey, KC Athletics are Kansas City, Missouri, Milwaukee Bavarians are Milwaukee, Wisconsin, NTX Rados are Dallas, Texas, FC Sonic Lehigh Valley are Allentown, Pennsylvania. 2011 AAC Eagles are Chicago, Illinois are lost 1 to Madison 56ers, ASC New Stars are Houston, Texas are lost 1 to Orlando City, Brooklyn Italians are Brooklyn, New York are lost 1 to New York Paint Cyprian Freedoms, Chattanooga FC are Chattanooga, Tennessee are lost 1 to Pittsburgh Riverhounds, Doxa Italia are Manhattan Beach, California are lost 1 to Ventura County Fusion Divide 8 Defenders are Redwood City, California are lost 1 to Real Colorado Foxes, Hollywood United. Hitmen are Los Angeles, California are lost 1 to Los Angeles Blues, Iowa Menace are Des Moines, Iowa are lost 1 to Chicago Fire Premier, Madison 56ers are Madison, Wisconsin are lost 2 to Chicago Fire Premier after beating AAC Eagles, New York Paint Cyprian Freedoms are New York, New York are lost 2 to FC New York after beating Brooklyn Italians, Phoenix SC are Feasterville, Pennsylvania are lost 1 to Rochester Rhinos, Regals FC are Houston, Texas are lost 1 to Charleston Battery. 2010 Arizona's Arrows are Phoenix, Arizona are lost 2 to Austin Aztecs after beating Ventura County Fusion, Bay Area Ambassadors are Hayward, California are lost 1 to Kitsap Pumas, Brooklyn Italians are Brooklyn, New York a Euro lost a 1 to Harrisburg City Islanders, CASL Elite a Euro Raleigh, North Carolina a Euro lost a 1 to Charleston Battery, Detroit United a Euro Detroit, Michigan a Euro lost a 1 to Pittsburgh Riverhounds, KC Athletics a Euro Kansas City, Missouri a Euro lost a 1 to NSC Minnesota Stars, Legends. FC a Euro Dallas, Texas a Euro lost a 1 to FC Tampa Bay, New York Paint Cyprian Freedoms a Euro New York a Euro lost a 1 to Long Island Rough Riders, Sonoma County Sol a Euro Santa Rosa, California Euro lost a 1 to Portland Timbers. 2009 402 FC a Euro Omaha, Nebraska Euro lost a 1 to Minnesota Thunder, Aegean Hawks a Euro Arlington, Virginia Euro lost a 1 to Real Maryland Monarchs, Arizona Zaguaros a Euro Phoenix, Arizona a Euro lost a 1 to El Paso Patriots, Atlanta FC a Euro Sandy Springs, Georgia a Euro lost a 1 to Charleston Battery, Bavarian SC a Euro Milwaukee, Wisconsin a Euro lost a 1 to Chicago Fire Premier, Emigrants das Illes a Euro Brockton, Massachusetts a Euro lost a 1 to Western Mass Pioneers, Lynch's FCA. Euro Jacksonville, Florida a Euro lost a 1 to Miami FC, Sonoma County Sol a Euro Santa Rosa, California Euro lost a 2 to Portland Timbers after beating Orange County Blue Star. 2008 AAC Eagles a Euro Chicago, Illinois a Euro lost a 1 to Pittsburgh Riverhounds, Arizona Zaguaros a Euro Phoenix, Arizona a Euro lost a 1 to Seattle Sounders, ASC New Stars a Euro Houston, Texas a Euro lost a 1 to Charleston Battery, Boston Olympiacos a Euro Boston, Massachusetts a Euro lost a 1 to Western Mass Pioneers, Clearwater Galactics a Euro Clearwater, Florida a Euro lost a 1 to Charlotte Eagles, Hollywood United a Euro Manhattan Beach, California Euro lost a 2 to Seattle Sounders after beating Portland Timbers, New York Paint Cyprian Freedoms. A Euro New York a Euro lost a 1 to Real Maryland Monarchs, RWB Adria a Euro Chicago, Illinois a Euro lost a 1 to Rochester Rhinos. 2007 Aegean Hawks a Euro Arlington, Virginia Euro lost a 1 to Harrisburg City Islanders, Missouri a Euro Dallas, Texas a Euro lost a 1 to Atlanta Silverbacks, Bannock Arsenal a Euro Phoenix, Arizona a Euro lost a 1 to Seattle Sounders, Danbury United a Euro Danbury, Connecticut a Euro lost a 1 to Western Mass Pioneers, Indios USA a Euro Canutolo, Texas a Euro lost a 1 to Minnesota Thunder, Lynch's FC a Euro Jacksonville, Florida a Euro lost a 1 to Charlotte Eagles, Milwaukee Bavarians a Euro Milwaukee, Wisconsin a Euro lost a 2 to Carolina Railhawks after beating Cincinnati Kings, RWB Adria a Euro Chicago, Illinois a Euro lost a 1 to Carolina Railhawks. 2006 Allied SC a Euro Baltimore, Maryland a Euro lost QR to Cape Cod Crusaders, Arizona Zaguaros a Euro Phoenix, Arizona a Euro lost a 2 to Virginia Beach Mariners after beating BYU Cougars, Chicago Lightning a Euro Chicago, Illinois a Euro lost a 1 to Milford International, Croatian Eagles a Euro Milwaukee, Wisconsin a Euro lost QR to Des Moines Menace, Dallas Mustang Legends a Euro Dallas, Texas a Euro lost a 1 to Des Moines Menace, Dallas Roma a Euro Dallas, Texas a Euro lost a 4 to Los Angeles Galaxy after beating Laredo. Heat, Miami FC and Chivas USA, Milford International a Euro Milford, Connecticut a Euro lost a 2 to New Hampshire Phantoms after beating Chicago Lightning, Sonoma County Sol a Euro Santa Rosa, California Euro lost a 2 to Charleston Battery after beating Ogden Outlaws. 2005 AAC Eagles a Euro Chicago, Illinois a Euro lost a 1 to Chicago Fire Premier, Missouri a Euro Dallas, Texas a Euro lost a 1 to Dallas Roma, Baltimore Colts a Euro Baltimore, Maryland a Euro lost a 1 to Richmond Kickers Future, Dallas Roma a Euro Dallas, Texas a Euro lost a 2 to Wilmington Hammerheads after beating Cocoa Expos and Missouri, Greek American Atlas a Euro Jamaica, New York a Euro lost a 1 to Ocean City Barons, Reggae Boys a Euro Indianapolis, Indiana a Euro lost a 2 to Western Mass Pioneers. After beating Cincinnati Kings, Salinas Valley Samba Euro Salinas, California Euro lost a 2 to Seattle Sounders after beating Cascade Surge and Sonoma County Sol. Sonoma County Sol Euro Santa Rosa, California Euro lost a 1 to Salinas Valley Samba. 2004 Allied SCA Euro Baltimore, Maryland Euro lost a 1 to South Jersey Barons, Azuria Euro Dallas, Texas Euro lost a 1 to Cocoa Expos, Bavarian SCA Euro Milwaukee, Wisconsin Euro lost a 1 to Carolina Dynamo, Chico Rooks Euro Chico, California Euro lost a 1 to Boulder Rapids Reserve, Dallas Mustang Legends Euro Dallas, Texas Euro lost a 1 to DFW Tornadoes, Greek American Atlas Euro Jamaica, New York Euro lost a 1 to Cape Cod Crusaders, Sakwala Euro Chicago, Illinois. Euro lost a 1 to Chicago Fire Reserves, Sacramento Knights Euro Sacramento, California Euro lost a 2 to Utah Blitzz after beating Spokane Shadow. References. External links, USASA official site.